Your brain is literally sabotaging your success every 11 milliseconds. Right now, as you're reading this, your neural circuits are firing 1,400 biochemical reactions that are hardwiring you for failure, anxiety, and limitation. But neuroscience has just cracked the code on how to hijack these same mechanisms and weaponries them for unstoppable confidence and peak performance. Your brain processes 70,000 thoughts daily, with 80% being negative and 95% repetitive. Negative thinking creates measurable changes in brain structure and chemistry, but neuroplasticity research proves these patterns can be completely rewired through consistent practice. Your neural architecture is essentially running on autopilot, executing the same mental programs that were installed years ago through repetition and emotional intensity. When neuroscientists at UCLA used functional MRI technology to study thought patterns, they discovered something profound. The human brain has a negativity bias that's approximately 5 times stronger than its positivity bias. This isn't a character flaw, it's evolutionary programming that kept our ancestors alive by constantly scanning for threats. Every negative thought you experience triggers a cascade of approximately 1,400 biochemical reactions in your brain within milliseconds. Your amygdala, a walnut-sized structure in your limbic system, processes emotional information 20 milliseconds faster than your rational prefrontal cortex can even recognize what's happening. This means you're often in a full stress response before you're consciously aware you're having a negative thought. The repetitive nature of negative thinking creates what neuroscientists call neural superhighways, deeply grooved pathways that become the brain's default route for processing information. Studies from Harvard Medical School show that chronic negative thinkers have measurably thicker neural connections in their default mode network, the brain region associated with rumination and self-referential thinking. These individuals literally have brains that are structurally wired for pessimism. But here's where the science becomes empowering. Your brain exhibits neuroplasticity throughout your entire life. Researchers at Stanford discovered that focused attention training can create new neural pathways within 72 hours, and significant structural changes occur within 2 weeks of consistent practice. When you consciously interrupt negative thought patterns, you're activating gene expression that produces proteins necessary for building new neural connections. The key insight from decades of neuroscience research is that your thoughts aren't just mental events, they're physical forces that sculpt your brain's architecture. Every time you choose a different thought, you're literally rewiring your neural circuitry. Brain scans show that people who practice cognitive restructuring techniques develop increased gray matter density in regions associated with emotional regulation, attention control, and executive function. The same neural mechanisms that created your negative thinking patterns can be redirected to build unshakable mental resilience and peak cognitive performance. Use cognitive diffusion by prefacing negative thoughts with "I'm having the thought that," combined with 4-4-8 breathing technique and benefit finding exercises to immediately interrupt and redirect negative neural patterns. The moment you catch yourself in negative thinking, you have approximately 90 seconds before the neurochemical cascade becomes fully integrated into your system. This is your neurological window of opportunity. The cognitive diffusion technique works by activating your prefrontal cortex, which then sends inhibitory signals to your amygdala, effectively downregulating the stress response. When you say, "I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough," instead of "I'm not good enough," you're creating what psychologists call psychological distance from the thought. Brain imaging studies from the University of Pennsylvania show that this simple linguistic shift activates the anterior cingulate cortex, a brain region crucial for cognitive control and emotional regulation. The phrase "I'm having the thought that" transforms you from being the victim of your thoughts to being the observer of your mental processes. This metacognitive awareness is the foundation of all neural rewiring because you cannot change what you cannot observe. The 4-4-8 breathing protocol works by stimulating your vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve that connects your brain to your heart, lungs, and digestive system. When you exhale for twice as long as you inhale, you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which produces immediate measurable changes in heart rate variability and cortisol levels. Research from Stanford's Stress and Health Research Program shows that this breathing pattern can reduce cortisol by up to 25% within 2 minutes. The benefit-finding component leverages your brain's neuroplasticity by forcing activation of neural networks associated with creative problem-solving and opportunity recognition. When you require your brain to generate 3 specific benefits or opportunities from every negative situation, you're literally rewiring your neural circuits to default towards solution finding rather than problem fixation. Studies from the University of North Carolina demonstrate that people who practice benefit finding show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex and decreased activity in the amygdala within just 3 weeks. This entire protocol takes less than 3 minutes to execute, but creates immediate neurochemical changes that interrupt the negative thought spiral. The key is consistency every time you implement this circuit breaker. You're strengthening the neural pathways that support emotional regulation and cognitive flexibility while weakening the pathways that support rumination and negative thinking patterns. Negative thinking releases cortisol and shrinks your prefrontal cortex, while positive, solution-focused thinking releases BDNF and grows gray matter density. Your thoughts are biochemical events that literally reshape your brain's physical structure. Every thought you experience initiates a complex biochemical cascade that begins in your hypothalamus and spreads throughout your entire nervous system within milliseconds. When you engage in negative thinking, your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis activates, releasing cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine into your bloodstream. These stress hormones don't just affect your mood, they cross the blood-brain barrier and directly impact neural tissue. Chronic cortisol exposure literally shrinks dendrites in your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive function, working memory, and emotional regulation. Research from Yale University's Stress Center reveals that prolonged negative thinking patterns can reduce prefrontal cortex volume by up to 14% over 6 months. This structural shrinkage manifests as decreased ability to make complex decisions, reduced creative problem-solving capacity, and impaired emotional control. The hippocampus, crucial for memory formation and learning, also experiences measurable atrophy under chronic stress hormone exposure, explaining why negative thinkers often struggle with memory consolidation and learning new skills. Conversely, when you engage in positive, solution-focused thinking, your brain releases an entirely different neurochemical cocktail. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with motivation and reward-seeking behavior, increases neural firing rates and enhances synaptic plasticity. Serotonin, which regulates mood and social behavior, promotes the growth of new neural connections in your prefrontal cortex. Most importantly, positive thinking triggers the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, often called Miracle-Gro for the brain. BDNF is a protein that acts like fertilizer for neural growth, promoting the survival of existing neurons and encouraging the formation of new synapses. Studies from the University of California, San Francisco show that people who practice gratitude and positive reframing techniques have BDNF levels that are 23% higher than baseline within 4 weeks. This protein doesn't just maintain existing neural networks, it actively grows new ones, increasing gray matter density in regions associated with learning, memory, and emotional resilience. The implications are profound. Your thoughts aren't just mental events happening in isolation. They're physical forces that sculpt your brain's architecture moment by moment. Brain imaging studies demonstrate that people who consistently practice positive thinking patterns show measurable increases in cortical thickness, enhanced white matter integrity, and improved neural connectivity between prefrontal regions and emotional centers. You're literally thinking your brain into a higher performance configuration. Neuroscience shows it takes approximately 66 days of consistent practice to automate new neural pathways, but changes begin immediately. Daily directed neuroplasticity training accelerates this transformation process. The 66-day time frame comes from groundbreaking research at University College London, where scientists tracked 96 individuals learning new behaviors and measured the neural changes using advanced neuroimaging technology. What they discovered revolutionized our understanding of habit formation and neural rewiring. The brain requires approximately 66 days of consistent repetition to create what neuroscientists call automaticity, the point where new neural pathways become the default route for information processing. During the first 21 days, your brain is actively resisting the new thought patterns because they require conscious effort and energy. Your prefrontal cortex must work overtime to override established neural superhighways, consuming up to 20% more glucose than normal. This is why changing negative thinking patterns feels exhausting initially. You're literally burning more brain fuel to forge new neural connections while simultaneously weakening old ones through a process called synaptic pruning. Between days 22 and 44, something remarkable happens. Your brain begins producing more myelin, the fatty substance that insulates neural pathways and increases signal transmission speed. Brain scans show measurable increases in white matter density during this phase, indicating that your new thought patterns are becoming more efficient and requiring less conscious effort to maintain. The anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for cognitive control, shows enhanced connectivity with other brain regions. The final phase, days 45 to 66, is where transformation becomes automatic. Your brain has now restructured its neural architecture to support the new thinking patterns as the path of least resistance. Studies from MIT's McGovern Institute demonstrate that during this final phase, neural firing patterns shift from requiring prefrontal cortex activation to becoming subcortical processes that operate below conscious awareness. However, the most encouraging finding is that positive changes begin immediately. Within 72 hours of implementing new thought patterns, gene expression changes occur that promote neuroplasticity. After 1 week, measurable increases in dendritic branching appear in brain regions associated with learning and memory. By day 14, structural changes in gray matter density become visible on MRI scans. The key insight is that directed neuroplasticity training, deliberately practicing specific thought patterns at scheduled times, can compress this 66-day window. Research from Stanford's Neuroscience Institute shows that people who engage in 20 minutes of focused mental training daily achieve automaticity in an average of 47 days rather than 66, representing a 28% acceleration in neural rewiring speed. Eliminating negative thinking patterns doesn't just improve mood, it enhances immune function, cardiovascular health, sleep quality, creativity, and relationship satisfaction by freeing up cognitive resources previously trapped in rumination. When you eliminate chronic negative thinking, you're not just changing your mental state, you're unleashing a cascade of biological improvements that affect every system in your body. Negative thinking patterns consume enormous amounts of cognitive resources through what psychologists call cognitive load. Studies from Carnegie Mellon University show that people trapped in rumination cycles use up to 47% of their working memory capacity on repetitive negative thoughts, leaving minimal mental resources for creative problem solving, learning, and peak performance. The immune system benefits are particularly striking. Research from UCLA's Cousins Center demonstrates that people who practice positive thinking patterns show increased natural killer cell activity, the white blood cells responsible for fighting cancer and viral infections. Their bodies produce 23% more antibodies in response to vaccines, and inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein decrease by an average of 19% within 8 weeks. This occurs because chronic negative thinking keeps your sympathetic nervous system in a constant state of activation, suppressing immune function through elevated cortisol and inflammatory cytokines. Cardiovascular improvements are equally dramatic. The American Heart Association published research showing that people who eliminate negative thinking patterns experience measurable reductions in blood pressure, resting heart rate, and arterial inflammation. Their heart rate variability, a key marker of cardiovascular resilience, improves by an average of 32% within 6 weeks. This happens because positive thinking activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes vasodilation, reduces cardiac stress, and optimizes blood flow throughout the body. Sleep architecture transforms completely when negative thinking patterns are eliminated. Polysomnographic studies reveal that former negative thinkers spend 18% more time in REM sleep and 24% more time in deep slow-wave sleep. The stage is crucial for memory consolidation and cellular repair. They fall asleep 67% faster on average because their minds aren't cycling through worry and rumination that elevates cortisol and disrupts natural circadian rhythms. Perhaps most importantly, creativity and cognitive flexibility increase exponentially. Brain imaging studies show that people who break free from negative thinking patterns demonstrate enhanced connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and temporal lobes, regions crucial for innovative thinking and problem solving. They score 41% higher on divergent thinking tests and show increased activity in the default mode network during creative tasks rather than during rumination. This cognitive liberation allows for breakthrough insights, innovative solutions, and expanded possibilities that were previously blocked by limiting thought patterns. 20 minutes of daily focused attention practice increases cortical thickness and decreases amygdala activity within 8 weeks, providing the neurological foundation for sustained mental transformation and peak performance. Attention is the master skill that underlies all cognitive transformation. Your ability to direct and sustain attention determines whether you remain trapped in automatic negative thinking patterns or develop conscious control over your mental processes. Neuroscientists at Harvard Medical School used high-resolution MRI technology to study meditation practitioners and discovered that just 20 minutes of daily focused attention training creates measurable structural changes in brain architecture within 8 weeks. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's executive control center, shows increased cortical thickness, averaging 0.2 millimeters after consistent attention training. This might seem minimal, but in neuroscience terms, it represents millions of new neural connections and enhanced processing capacity. Simultaneously, the amygdala, your brain's alarm system responsible for fear and stress responses, decreases in both size and reactivity by an average of 8% over the same time frame. What makes attention training so powerful is its effect on the anterior cingulate cortex, a brain region that acts as the bridge between emotional and rational processing. Studies from the University of Oregon show that focused attention practice increases gray matter density in the anterior cingulate by 12% within 4 weeks, dramatically improving your ability to notice negative thoughts before they spiral into full rumination cycles. The default mode network, where mind wandering and negative self-referential thinking occur, becomes fundamentally rewired through attention training. Brain imaging reveals that experienced practitioners show decreased activity in this network during rest periods, meaning their minds naturally gravitate toward present moment awareness rather than automatic worry and rumination. This represents a complete restructuring of your brain's idle state from negative to neutral or positive. Attention training also enhances what neuroscientists call cognitive flexibility, your ability to switch between different mental tasks and adapt to changing circumstances. Research from Stanford's Cognitive and Systems Neuroscience Laboratory demonstrates that people who practice focused attention show 34% faster task switching abilities and 28% better working memory performance compared to controls.